What's up, guys, and welcome to the first episode of Hoops House. Today we're going to be discussing the blockbuster trade between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics, involving Kyrie Irving, Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, and the huge potential of the Brooklyn Nets 2018 first-round draft pick, as well as the post-trade throw-in of Boston's 2020 second-round pick. I wanted to start this video out by saying that I think this is an example of a trade where both teams benefit, and that it would be impossible to determine the true winner of the trade for a few years. However, this video will look at how it affects each team for next season as well as the future. Before we get into any of that, I wanted to point out one of the strangest things about this deal. This trade is one of the only examples in the NBA history of two top teams in a conference trading such a huge amount of assets to each other. Most teams avoid doing this as they do not wish to make their direct rivals better, even if they believe it will benefit themselves. I mean, can you imagine the Boston Celtics trading Robert Parrish to the Chicago Bulls in the late 80s? Hell no. But this is the modern NBA. And the 2017 offseason has been one of the craziest yet, with Paul George, Dwight Howard, Jimmy Butler, Ricky Rubio, Chris Paul, and D'Angelo Russell all being traded. So, if it was going to happen, it makes perfect sense for it to happen right now. Now let's dive into how this deal affects the Cavs and that potential reason for pulling the trigger on this franchise-defining deal. The Cleveland Cavaliers have obviously benefited from the return of LeBron James. He turned the franchise around and has taken them to 3 straight finals and the first Cleveland sports championship in 52 years. However, rumours of LeBron leaving the Cleveland for greener pastures have sprouted up over the course of the 2016-2017 season. This has put Cleveland in an incredibly difficult position, a position that has been further complicated by their decision to let long-time successful general manager David Griffin leave. This decision really warrants its own video, but essentially the Cavs felt that Gilbert wasn't worth his contract demands and chose to go on another path. This left the Cavs without strong leadership in the front office over the free agency and draft periods, arguably the two most important periods for any front office. They made some questionable moves in that time, signing veteran and, let's be honest, washed-up point guard Jose Calderon, but perhaps the biggest misstep was them not managing to acquire any more talent to place around LeBron James and come back to the finals with a real shot at the Warriors. These blunders added fuel to the LeBron James' leaving fire, and combined with Kyrie asking to be traded, they were seemingly in a really tough spot. But this trade with Boston is a fantastic move for them, and I got to give my hats off to their new GM. Isaiah Thomas was historically good last year, averaging 28.9 points and 5.9 assists, 2.5% true shooting. You can argue until the cows come home over who is better out of IT and Kyrie, but the fact is IT is slightly older and only on a 1-year deal, compared to Kyrie, who's 25 and has 2 years left on his deal. Because of this, IT clearly has a lower trade value than Kyrie, even when completely healthy. But he won't make the Cavaliers that much worse than they were last year. In fact, they could even be better. Isaiah Thomas is a wonderful off-the-ball player as well as on-ball player. He has fantastic three-point shooting, both on the pull-up and on the catch-and-shoot, and is an incredibly decisive slasher and driver. He doesn't take as much time or as many dribbles as Kyrie in order to create, and ought to fit into Cleveland's offense exceptionally well. I wouldn't be surprised if the offense flowed better next year as LeBron and IT drive and kick their way to open looks at the rim and opening other players up from 3. The injury concern for his hip is real, but IT played through it to great success in the playoffs and will be striving to prove he is still worth a big contract. So I think he's going to play really well and be an exceptionally good fit for Cleveland, and they have a fantastic shot at making it back to the finals. On top of this, Cleveland managed to acquire Jay Crowder, one of the most valuable players in the league based on his contract. Jay has 3 years left on his deal at roughly $7 million a year, an absolute steal with the cap sitting at $100 million a year right now. Jay is the perfect wing for Cleveland. He can come off the bench and effectively guard both 2s and 3s, while still being able to play small ball 4 at the same time. Having Jay is a great upgrade over Cleveland's main bench shooting wing last year, Kyle Korver. While Korver might be able to shoot lights out, he's a lot older and struggles somewhat on defense due to his fading athleticism. This trade allows Cleveland to bring Crowder off the bench and run the following lineup in crunch time and important moments in the game. Isaiah Thomas at the point guard, J.R. Smith at the 2, Jay Crowder at the 3, LeBron James at the 4, and then one of either Kevin Love or Tristan Thompson based on needs at the 5. This lineup matches up a lot better with the Warriors than the Cavaliers did with Shumpert or Korver in the 2017 finals. Crowder can play the role of both Shumpert and Korver by guarding KD on one end and not being an offensive dud on the other, like Iman Shumpert. I firmly believe the added depth of Crowder and the sideways movement between IT and Kyrie allows the Cavs the potential to be even better next year. But the reason why this trade is so good for the Cavs is the insurance it provides if LeBron leaves next year. For this reason, the biggest piece in this trade is the Brooklyn Nets draft pick in 2018. The draft appears to be absolutely loaded with Luka Doncic, Marvin Bagley III, Michael Porter Jr., DeAndre Ayton, and Mo Bamba as the top 5 prospects at this stage of the scouting process. The Nets won't be as bad as they were this past season, but they won't be great either. They lost Brook Lopez, and whilst D'Angelo Russell and Jeremy Lin are a decent backcourt, they'll get destroyed on the glass and their defense will be suspect at best, with Timofey Mozgov guarding the rim. This could easily translate into a top 5 pick for the Cavs, and they could name one of those 5 players to build around in the future. On top of this, Cleveland's salaries might be insanely high for next year, with Dan Gilbert paying insane luxury tax for the past few seasons. But if LeBron and IT both leave, then the Cavs would actually be around $16 million under the projected salary cap for the 2018-2019 season. And the following season, they only have $50 million committed in salary. The cap coming off the books means they can easily tank, not sign long-term deals past the 2019 season, and retool around their Brooklyn pick. To help them in the rebuilding process, Kevin Love would still have a year on his deal after LeBron left and could be traded for some future assets, allowing them to dive into mediocrity and tank their way to another top pick. But the flexibility doesn't end there. Another option would be retooling around Love and whoever they draft with the Brooklyn pick, then add free agents and try to stay relevant with a Timberwolves-style team around Kevin Love. But with many NBA teams having a championship or bust attitude, I can't see the Cavs pursuing this route. These backup plans, however, for LeBron James's departure are both good, and they highlight the flexibility that this trade gives the Cavs going forward. Now let's move on to Boston, and we'll see that there has been a ton of criticism surrounding trading Isaiah Thomas and the Nets pick for Kyrie. But does this trade provide value for Boston, or is it a huge blunder by the front office? Danny Ainge has been accused of hoarding draft picks and assets for years now, but this criticism really ramped up when he passed on pulling the trigger to acquire Paul George and Jimmy Butler. The Celtics have been rapidly rebuilding since 2013 when they traded Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett in exchange for a treasure chest of draft picks from the Brooklyn Nets. These picks would eventuate into Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and the last would be included in this deal to the Cavs. After making the Eastern Conference Finals and getting absolutely smoked by the Cavaliers last year, Danny Ainge and the Celtics were, like the Cavs, at a crossroads. They could cash in the assets for a star player like Paul George or Jimmy Butler on a rental and run the risk they leave, or ride their youth and hope the 2018 draft is a good one. Hint, it is. If you ask me, I think Danny played this offseason perfectly. He managed to get Gordon Hayward whilst only giving up a little bit of value in the Bradley for Morris trade. And this was really only made happen by the fact that the salary cap was at $99 million instead of the projected $103 million. And this trade for Kyrie relieves some of their problems with the next offseason, makes them younger and still an exceptionally good team. Whilst most of the complaining about having too many assets is pretty overblown, at some point you do need to consolidate into a team of around 8 to 9 good to great players in order to compete. And trading 3 strong assets for 1 great player is a great way to do this. And for Boston, if they kept Crowder, they would have a gluttony of small forward-based wings with Hayward, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. Moving Jay Crowder allows them to start Hayward and keep plenty of minutes to develop their stud draft picks, as well as not have any locker room issues with Jay Crowder perhaps wanting more minutes than he was given. Parting with Isaiah Thomas, though, was a huge emotional heartbreak for many Celtics fans, and I'm sure the organisation. He had embraced Boston 100% and embodied everything the city loved. He was all heart, never gave up, incredibly talented, and was heroic in the playoffs despite the tragic death of his sister. And you can see he was clearly hurt through these comments that the NBA legend and Isaiah Thomas namesake gave after he was traded.
I'd be remiss if I don't ask you about your namesake. Have you talked to the young Isaiah Thomas about the trade?
Yesterday.
How's he handling it?
Emotionally, he's hurt.
He's hurt.
Emotionally, he's wounded. Now, from a basketball standpoint, he and Kyrie Irving, this would be great for both of them. They both will do well. But, you know, it really was like a punch in the gut because it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Kyrie was expecting the trade. He was prepared for it. You know, and talking to Isaiah the other night, you know, now he's scrambling, trying to find out where his kids are going to go to school.
After hearing that interview and knowing the tragic summer that Thomas has just had, it is hard not to feel incredibly sorry for him. But, unfortunately, the NBA is a business, and Isaiah Thomas posed some serious contract problems for the Celtics. He would have been 29 at the end of the year, and demanding a max contract after his phenomenal play over the past 3 seasons. Giving a 5'9" point guard a max deal when he's been plagued with hip injuries is a huge risk, and trading him for Kyrie on a 2-year deal adds stability to the team, and re-signing Kyrie to a max deal at 27 has a lot less risk than doing so for IT at 29. I imagine that Boston is looking to be very competitive in the next 2 seasons, and hope to get a little bit lucky and maybe make the finals or even win a championship. Their projected lineup and bench is really strong, with a starting lineup of Kyrie Irving, then Marcus Smart or Jaylen Brown at the 2, Gordon Hayward, Marcus Morris, and Al Horford at the 5. The bench is also quite deep, with the other of Smart and Brown, Jason Tatum, Terry Rozier, and Aaron Baines as solid bench pieces. And then they have Daniel Theis, Gershon, the Dancing Bear Yabusele, Semi Ojeleye, Abdel Nader, and Shane Larkin as players who have the potential to play good NBA minutes. Since the completion of this trade, they also have an extra roster spot to pick somebody else up, giving them more flexibility. And there have been rumours of them picking up Thomas Robinson to help fix out their rebounding problems. But the biggest thing for Celtics is the transition from an older team with a timeline that was in line with the Warriors and the Cavs. Let's face it, every team bar the Warriors and whatever team LeBron is on has a very low chance of winning the title for at least the next 2 years. This makes it difficult for teams to commit to going all in on a team in this time frame. The Celtics have managed to put together an amazing team while not going all in. They still have the flexibility of their youth as well as being good right now. With Kyrie Irving, Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Semi Ojeleye, Gershon Yabusele all being under the age of 25 and most of them being under the age of 23, they have some serious potential. Plus, they have all of their first round draft picks as well as the 2018 Lakers or the 2019 Philly or Kings draft pick. A pick trade so complicated it really needs its own video as well. They also have a 2019 protected from the lottery first round pick from the Clippers and the 2019 Memphis first round pick. So once Hayward and Horford come out of their contracts, they'll have an insane amount of flexibility to let certain players go and keep the young guns that have panned out. Boston should expect to be very, very good from 2020 onwards. And now we come to the very weird, rumour-filled ending of the trade. Almost a week after the trade had been lodged with league officials and announced to the world, rumours began to circulate that Cleveland was unhappy with the medical status of Isaiah Thomas's hip and were going to demand more value from the Celtics. However, many reports also surfaced that the Brooklyn pick was the main asset in the deal, and there was never any real threat of the trade falling through. To counter this, rumours also appeared that the Cavs were asking for Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown from the Celtics, as well as everything else they had given up. Many thought that the Celtics may have to cave as Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder appeared emotionally hurt at the trade, and it wouldn't be a good idea to have them play for the Celtics in the next season, and other teams would know this and their trade value would be subsequently shot. In truth, it is likely that rescinding the trade would have been very bad look for both teams with their players and fans, and the Celtics merely had to part with their 2020 second round pick to finalise the deal and make sure it got through. In summary, this is a super tight trade to call, and I don't think it'll be possible to make a decision as to who won or lost this deal. Both teams will be really good in the 2017-2018 season and gain flexibility going forward. It'll probably take until 2020 until we know who really won this deal. But in the meantime, it'll be incredibly interesting to see how the Cavs go with Isaiah Thomas instead of Kyrie, and if Kyrie can take another leap in ability with the opportunity he has in Boston. Thanks guys for watching, and if you liked this video, please make sure to leave a thumbs up down below and subscribe, and leave a comment and let me know what you think of the deal, and if Kyrie Irving will succeed in Boston, and if the Cavs will be just as good with Isaiah Thomas.